Hi, Mary. I am going to give you some feedback on your portfolio. However, I'm going to also give you a little lesson about how Google Drive works. Now, originally you gave me edit access to this, which is great. This is your folder, Education 5900 Grassa. So when you create a document inside here, then anything inside this folder, I will have edit access to. However, when you go to your student portfolio, if I click on a link, if if the file that I'm clicking on is not in this folder, you have to give me special permissions. You have to go to the, so for this case here, um, I have edit access here, and if I click on share, um, I can see all the permissions here. You've actually given me direct access here. But when you click on this, you can say restricted or anyone with a link. And then you can also say, is this an editor, a commenter, or a viewer? And so when I look at your documents here, you obviously have created this in Google Docs, but you have to share this way. You cannot just copy this link. That doesn't work. So when you share it this way, now I don't have access to it, so I can't do anything. You have to give me edit access. So I'm going to have to give you verbal feedback on this. I will say here that your formatting, your sense of formatting is a little off. You know, this is a different font here. This is a different font. It takes away from the professionalism of the particular document. If we go down to references here, way down here. Well, there we are. References actually have a different format where they're supposed to have a hanging indent. They certainly aren't in bold. They're definitely not in multi fonts all over the place kind of thing. However, I will say that for the most part, you've actually followed APA format, except for this bold stuff. Although don't know about this one here. Maybe. And most of these are pretty good references, so that's solid. In terms of APA formatting, these are always going to be indented paragraphs. You've got double spaces in here, so it's not really a sort of impublishable format. But if we go to the content, usually this kind of article, this kind of paper would have an abstract. You know, tell me, it's kind of like what are you going to be covering here? And which probably is your headings. Your introduction probably isn't the best, really. I mean, we don't need to know about Turing and the development of this. I don't think that helps your thesis in terms of talking about bias. Um, I think you can have an introduction, but it doesn't have to be that long. It's interesting to you, and so therefore that's fine. But from the reader's perspective, I'm wondering why are we talking about touring, and that's kind of deep. You know, I don't need that kind of base. So if I were doing it, I might actually give examples of AI bias, search those out and then say there's, considerable problems. I like your idea initially, we're worried about cheating, but actually it's about bias. And then I would talk about how Gen AI works, right? The model. And then I'd move into the bias here. And again, all these stuff would be indented. And I would give you probably feedback on your writing if I could edit here, but I can't. Some cases, it's pretty good, but you could certainly have some improvement. And like these sort of quotes in here, uh, I'm not sure they're helpful. There's certainly it's not really something you'd see in kind of a more academic kind of paper. So and then let's see. Yeah, you do have the training here, so I guess that that would be fine if you talk about bias. I think probably more concrete examples would help. Um, I don't, you started to go on about this protest here. I don't think you're making much of a case for how AI is um, facilitating political ideologies. You're just saying like this protest. At least I don't see the connection. So um, yeah, and things like starting a sentence with and, you don't do that. Well, you do it, but probably shouldn't. And then the implicit and explicit bias. I would probably separate the two. Uh, you give some examples, but I'm not sure where it was. Yeah, I think it was here, but the article is dated 2024, which means these are earlier models. You'd want the most current models because, yes, there were problems, but it's a bit of a, what do they say, a straw horse to put up the early research on bias when we know it was there, and there have been substantial efforts to improve it. And then, yeah, this is a long section here. And then let's see, what else was I going to add here? In other disciplinary domains, yeah, I mean, it can be that's a good look, a good take on it for sure. I might talk about solutions or ways you could address it in a little bit more detail. Um, and I think that's where, at the beginning, that introductory paragraph or abstract could give us a structure here. You're basically these independent units that are interesting in and of themselves, but don't really form a cohesive whole to the reader. Uh, uh, so I like your detailed here, detail in terms of how you've looked at things, which is great. Um, I probably would like this a little bit better organized. Everything can't be a paragraph format, so I would have listed the actual learning outcome and then how you addressed it. This is a bit short for engagement and effort. Just saying you do it doesn't provide me with evidence. Um, and so it's interesting here. You don't use AI to do summary for articles. I prefer. However, it would be really helpful if you used it to actually verify your summaries. You've listed tools, but not how you've used it, and so that's actually really important. Um, and so just listing the tools isn't enough. So your self-assessment is wanting a little bit, and then it's interesting. I think which would have probably made this uh, kind of an A plus effort is that if you'd provided an annotated um, bibliography of what you did. Uh, so, and then uh, that's interesting. Now, ChatGPT would have to have some criteria. It's hardly going to hammer your own work when you put it there. Um, it's yeah. There's definitely problems with transition. The academic tone is there in times, but yeah. So there definitely some room there. I would say this is more of an A minus, and and I would say that for all the reasons that I was talking about when I was presenting it. But overall, though, I think it is a very useful project, and yeah, I thank you for your hard work on it.